Good morning. You're listening to the Blainsboro Show, heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVMFM.org and watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in the Asheville area. And I'd also like to mention that support for this show and WPVM is underwritten by the Grail Movie House, Asheville's alternative cinema. The Grail Movie House is an independent, locally owned three-screen cinema located in downtown Asheville, North Carolina. For current features, visit the Grail website at grailmoviehouse.com or the Grail's social media pages. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce two guests, and they are David LaMotte, singer, songwriter, author, speaker, peace activist. And David, you can wave to people on Facebook Live. I think we're on there. We're on live now, and hopefully you are. And we're also pleased to have Steve Anderson, who's the fundraising chairman for the Rotary Club of Asheville Foundation. And I saw you already waved to the audience.
I already waved, yes.
Okay, great. And I believe we're on. I think we're on. I hope we're on. And today's show is a real special show. I'm really glad to have both these folks here because not only are they kind of amazing guys in their own right, but I should just tell you that David LaMotte is an award-winning songwriter, speaker, author, and activist. He's produced 12 CDs and performed 2,500 concerts in 5 continents. He suspended his music career in 2008 to accept the Rotary World Peace Fellowship, and additionally maintains a busy calendar of speaking and musical events worldwide. And the question I asked you off the air, David, I'm always curious with performers, is how do you get into the music business? Like when you were a little kid, did you always know you wanted to be an entertainer?
So those are two interesting questions. I'll answer them in order. How did I get into music? I think I think first music got into me. I grew up the fourth of 4 kids, and the other 3 come in a nice, neat package, and then there's a big gap, and I was obviously an oops baby. And so I showed up unexpected, and I'm about a half a generation off from my other siblings, and so I grew up listening to their music. And they were listening to the music of the 70s folk pop revival, kind of, they were listening to Don McLean and Jim Croce and Carole King and James Taylor and Cat Stevens and that kind of stuff, Neil Young, and I grew up listening to their music. So I'm sort of half a generation off in my influences in that way. And those songs kind of went right to my heart. These were songs about things that mattered and that were real. They weren't just entertainment, which is to say they weren't just taking you away from your life. They were art, which brings you back to your life from a different angle. And I was moved by that. So it's really natural, I think, if you are moved by something to want to stand closer to it, and to want to offer that gift that's been so meaningful to you. So I found an old beat-up guitar. I started off playing violin when I was really young, and that helped with ear training and such. I was studying Suzuki violin as a small child. But when I was about 15, 14, I found an old beat-up guitar that each of my siblings had kind of played with and neglected over the years. And there was this old guitar in the closet, and I picked it up and plinked around with it enough that my parents got convinced that if they got me a playable guitar, one that had strings that weren't an inch from the fretboard, that I might actually work on that. And so they got me a guitar, and they got me 3 lessons. And I went to these 3 guitar lessons, and they were intended to be ongoing, but the family went for a summer vacation, and we told the guy we'd call him when we got back, and that's been 35 years or so I'm sure he's pretty mad by now. But yeah, I've always been a very traditional folk musician in the sense that I haven't been classically trained or formally trained in any way, but there are guitarists everywhere. And if you're paying attention, you're learning from all of them. So I've had thousands of teachers instead of just one.
Okay, but you also had more than 3 lessons after those?
No, I just had those 3.
Wow, is that something?
Well, I'd had those 3 formal lessons,
Okay.
and then I paid attention because there are guitarists everywhere, and the vast majority of them, in my experience, if you go up afterwards and say, "Man, I love what you were doing," or "Woman, I love what you were doing," and will you show me what that was? Can you show me that thing you were doing? Most guitarists will say, "Yeah, sit down here. Let me show you this thing."
Interesting. In terms of learning guitar, Do you feel people can learn guitar or other instruments now by playing YouTube videos?
Oh,
That's the
absolutely.
hot thing.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole generation of young people who are doing precisely that, and older folks as well who are picking it up later in life. It's an incredible resource. Of course, it didn't exist when I was coming up, but it's amazing what you can find out there now.
And fast forward from there to the fact that then you started playing, and your first gig, do you remember how old when you had your first paid gig?
My first paid gig, I think, was in actually just up the road here in Montreat. It was I was working summers in college when I was in Montreat, and I think I was probably 19 or so. And some friends of mine had a band, and among the summer staff there, they hire about 100, 120 college students every summer. Back then, it was about 100, and so generally there's enough people in that group to put together a band. So there's a summer band, and I had some friends who were in this band who were really great musicians, and they were just a joy to listen to, and they were nice to me, and they would let me play on their breaks, and so I would play a James Taylor song or something on their breaks, and so we did this gig together, and we had it set up to where we would each take a little mini set. And I got featured right there on the poster. It was pretty special. So, and we had a $2 cover, I believe, and we split that up at the end of the night. So,
And do you still keep the
big
first?
money.
You still keep the first dollar you ever
The
made?
first dollar is in a poster frame that my mom grabbed the poster and very kindly knew that I would want that in 35 years or so. So.
Oh, is that cool? Or if you ever stuck for something, you can get
Got
the
that
first
dollar, right? If an emergency break glass,
I love it.
basically, right.
Back to then our other guest today, Steve Anderson, and we'll talk about how you and David got together. But Steve Anderson moved to the Asheville area 4 years ago after living and working in Europe for 30 years. And current activities, you almost sound like me a little bit. My wife says I'm busier now than when I was working.
That's really true.
And Steve's an amazing guy. He's in Rotary, very active, the fundraising chair of Rotary. In addition, he's in Land of the Sky Chorus. He's in a lot of other musical things, Asheville Accidentals. You're singing in spare time when you're not doing that. You're jogging, you're boating, you're playing golf. So you sound like you're a little busy.
There's never a dull moment, I can tell
Okay.
you that.
And talk a little bit about, in terms of your work with Rotary, and that's how I think I first met you. You then got teamed up with this guy, or this upcoming concert.
Yeah.
How'd that take place?
Well, try to put it in a nutshell. A couple of years ago, my neighbor invited me to a Rotary meeting, and I had no idea how much I was going to be impressed. I was really impressed. Just at a luncheon, to the people who were in the room, the program that they had that day. I went back to another, and the next thing you know, I'm a member. And that was a couple of years ago. And then last year, we had our first benefit concert, the Three Davids concert. One of those Davids was David LaMotte. And he kindly volunteered to do another concert this year. And we decided, let's call it David LaMotte and Friends. And then you can get some other musicians to join you. Had no idea the level he would go to. I'll let him tell you about the other musicians. But
And we'll talk in a second, too, about David and his tie into Rotary. But back to the concert. Concert's going to be what date?
it's June 9th. It's a Sunday, and it's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That worked really well last year. People still have the morning, then they have the evening, and they can still come to the concert.
And it's going to be where?
It's going to be at the Diana Wortham Theater.
Okay,
Which is-
and we'll mention a couple times, but people can get tickets how?
Well, there are two ways. RotaryAsheville.org is the website for the Rotary Club of Asheville, and the first thing you see when you go to that website is how to get tickets. Or you can go to DW Theater, spelled TheaTre.com, and that's the Diana Wortham Theater website, and there are 4 different ways, I believe, that you can get tickets.
And we should thank Rotary for a special announcement we're going to be making now. And if any of our listeners, or specifically people watching on Facebook Live, are going to try something here, that if you're watching, and hopefully you are, you have a chance to win 2 tickets, I think, to that event.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that right?
That's right.
And all you have to do, this is going to be kind of exciting, but if you're watching Facebook Live now, and we hope you are, just type in the word, or say the word, tickets. I think that's what we're going to do. And that after the show, we'll pick out the 5th person who writes in the word tickets, and they're going to get 2 free tickets to that event.
Yeah,
Is that
two
correct?
very good tickets.
Okay, pretty exciting stuff. So again, and we'll remind me, Steve, to mention it at the end of the show, but we're going to do an experiment here. If you're watching us on Facebook Live and type in the word tickets, and if you're the 5th person, you got 2 tickets to the
That's
upcoming
right.
show. David, let me ask you your tie-in then to Rotary, because not only are you performing this event, and you performed last year, but you have a whole story of your involvement with Rotary. What's that story?
Yeah, well, it has been a very significant part of my life. In 2008, I stepped away from my music career really at its peak. Things were really going well at that time. But I've always had a sense that there are 2 kind of main callings in my life. One is to music, and one is to peace work and conflict work. And I actually, in my undergrad, I was studying peace and conflict resolution, and I also started to gig out a little bit and play some shows. And so it was kind of wonderfully thrilling and surprising to me that the shows went pretty well in college. And when I got out of college, I had this decision to make. Do I pursue peace work, mediation, conflict resolution work, or do I pursue music? And I decided to give myself 2 years to see if I could make a go at music. And against the odds, it really worked. And so 18 years later, I was traveling internationally. I had 10 albums out or so, and things were going really, really well. And then I heard about the Rotary Peace Fellowship, and my head sort of snapped around sideways, and I thought, wait, I have to go do that. I have to put all this on pause and go and pursue this degree. And that was a kind of cheeky thing for me to say, because I had no cause to believe that I would be accepted into the program. It's a pretty hard thing to net. You know, there are only 50 folks chosen for the master's program out of applicants worldwide each year. So, but the truth is, I just had a deep sense in my gut that this was what was happening next for me. So I actually announced a farewell tour before I heard from Rotary that I had been accepted into the program. And I headed out for several months of goodbye shows. But I was accepted, and my wife and my 10-week-old son and I moved to Australia, where I did a master's program at the University of Queensland in Brisbane in international studies, conflict resolution, and peace work. And that has been a remarkable piece of my life. A year into that program, we also had a bit of funding from Rotary to do field work, and so the 3 of us moved to rural India for a few months, and I lived there working with followers of Gandhi and folks who had worked with him and studying their peace work, their contemporary peace work in India. So it's been a radically powerful experience for me, and of course I went through the program with 9 folks from all over the world who were also committed peace workers, peace builders, and got to know them. And so that network continues to be strong in my life. And it led to extraordinary opportunities like serving on the Nobel Peace Prize nominating task group for the AFSC for 6 years, 4 of which I got to chair that committee, to clerk it in Quaker language. And so a lot of neat things have happened out of that opportunity.
When you were overseas, were you performing at all also?
No, I felt like Rotary had made such a massive investment in me that I needed to not perform for the time that I was doing the master's degree. I needed to give my full attention to the degree. So that's what I did. In spite of the fact that I had toured Australia half a dozen times before that as a concert artist, I had played major festivals there and such, and I had some audience, and I did not play for them while I was in Australia because that felt like the right thing to do.
So after the 2 years over there, I mean, that's exciting stuff. You came back, and then were you doing some peace stuff, or you were playing? Did you get back into music? What happened at that time?
Yeah, I actually, when I came back, I had a year-long, what I've come to refer to as an experiment with conventional employment. The only time in my adult life that I've worked for an organization and had a boss other than myself. I worked for the North Carolina Council of Churches as their peace and justice guy, which is an ecumenical progressive organization, doing really good work. And so I got involved with them, and that kind of gave me a chance to stretch my activist muscles and to do some work around some issues that I really believe in. And I became friends with Reverend Barber during that time and ended up going to jail a couple times protesting in the legislature of North Carolina. So that opened up some other interesting avenues of my life, and so that was an interesting thing. But I also started to get more and more requests to come and perform again, and also to speak. And so at that time, my speaking gigs started to really develop. And I also was finishing up a book. So I wrote a book called World Changing 101, Challenging the Myth of Powerlessness, that's about narratives of change in our culture and how they play out in our daily lives. And it has come around to the circumstance that now about half my gigs are speaking gigs, if not maybe a little more. So I'm still playing music professionally, and I've got several interesting projects going on musically, but I'm also doing a lot of speaking and workshops with folks, trying to help us consider how the stories we tell ourselves and each other impact our daily decisions and how we live responsibly in the world.
Out of the many things you do, and you sound like Steve a little bit, you sound like a lot of other folks I know, that you're wearing kind of many hats, and you have to figure out which day you're wearing which hat.
And bald guys need hats, I'm telling you. So
I can relate,
Yeah.
That's why the one bad thing about Facebook Live, I'm saying that you get to see my bald spot. Or,
mine covers my whole head.
or I digress, David. I tell the story. I used to tell people, I'm not losing hair, I'm gaining face.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then, but my wife really upsets me. She'll say, I used to tell people I don't have a 4-head anymore, I have a 5-head,
Yeah.
And she'll come up and put her finger, no, it's a 6-head.
6 now, yeah.
She has to measure it, but such problems. But of all
Yes.
things you do you have a preference as to anything you like best? Writing, speaking, being a father, musical, well, father would be first, but
Yeah.
musical performer. Do you have any preference as to what you like
Yeah.
doing best?
I've got to put father and husband
Well,
first,
obviously.
of course, but I think, in all honesty, what I love about being a father and a husband, is the same thing that I love about music and about workshops and speaking and writing, is the capacity, the opportunity to challenge the myth of our separateness. I find that music has this extraordinary capacity to remind us of our connectedness. I want to know how it is. So we have this convention as a culture that when somebody plays a really good song, we clap at the end, right? Everybody knows that that's the rule. That's what we do here. We clap for a good song. Except every once in a while, there's a song that's played that's so moving, that's so heart-stopping for people, that nobody in the room wants to break the silence after the song. And sometimes it goes on for 20, 30 seconds. Sometimes nobody will do it, and you just start the next song. How do 2,000 people in a room make that decision together without discussing it?
It's a great question.
We have clear rules, clear expectations, and we have all just decided together any one person could break that moment, and nobody does.
Well, it's funny you
Right.
said that. I never thought about it. But I saw the same thing too, Steve. A couple of years ago, ACT did Cabaret.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the show, I've never seen it before, the show ended, very powerful ending, nobody clapped.
Yeah, right.
And just for 2 minutes, and they didn't come out for an encore, they didn't come out for a bow.
Right.
But I got a chill.
Yeah.
And you, as a performer, you must get that same chill when you get that, when that happens.
Absolutely. And I people have different lenses that they see this through, but for me, that's a spiritual moment. That's a moment where we are reminded that we really are connected. That the lie isn't that sweet feeling that you get. People who don't get the arts might kind of poo-poo that and say, oh yeah, that was a lovely little vacation you went on last night when you went to see that cabaret or you went to that concert, and now you have to get back to the meanness and cruelty of the real world. I say just the opposite. I say the part that's real is that connectedness. And that sense of isolation and loneliness that so many people walk around with all day, that's the lie. And so to challenge that is holy work, and it's profoundly real. It's not entertainment only, it's art, right? Which has the capacity to change the world. Entertainment gives us a vacation from our lives, but art brings us back to our lives from a different angle. And that's a different thing.
What really surprises me too, the same thing too, when I'm at a concert or hearing music, and I cry.
Yeah.
My wife always is amazed that I cry at music, but I do.
Oh man, I do too.
But you're absolutely right. When I cry or when it hits me emotionally, I'm not clapping. You know, it
Right.
just really grabs you, and that's really
Right.
cool. The one song, you probably know it too. I don't know if you sing it, but the one song always gets me. Is it Peter Yarrow does Bully? You know, the one song.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the
Uh-huh.
great peace songs.
Yeah,
or,
he
so-
wrote
or
that
something.
with Steve Seskin. Yeah.
Was that Bully?
Peter Yarrow and Steve Seskin.
Right, was that
wrote
Bully
that,
as the song?
Don't, what's it
Yeah.
called? Don't,
Pick or something. You know the song, though.
I do know the song,
But
yeah.
what a powerful song! And,
Yeah.
You know, it just gets me every time. Even talking about it, isn't
Yeah.
that powerful that music can do that?
Yeah, it's super powerful because, and I think, I used to say it connects us. It touches on common experience and that connects us. But actually, I've stopped saying that. I don't think music connects us. I think it reminds us of our connectedness. The connection is there and present already and real, but we forget about it, and that makes it really matter. So I like music that matters. That's not to say that I also, I mean, part of the joy of music is laughing together and taking a breath and relaxing and taking a step away from difficult things in our lives. All that is of deep value, and I love that part of a show. But those holy moments when everybody feels really connected, that matters. That's the part I love the most in all of it.
Well, let me put you on the spot talking about music and these moments. That I see you also brought a friend of yours with you, aside from Steve.
I
but
did.
you
A
get-
good
you
friend. A
get
good
friend.
travel buddy.
Okay. And by the
that's-
way, I always ask, does that travel buddy have a name?
No, it doesn't actually. I've never named this guitar, and I don't know why.
Because
But-
some people name their guitars.
Yeah, and
whatever.
I've sometimes named vehicles and such. I drove around for many years in Dan the Tan Van.
And you named your son also, I assume. right?
Gave him a name. My wife and I chose a name for him. His name is Mason Bishop LaMotte, and
Okay.
we named him Mason. That's not a family name. We named him Mason because our sort of sending prayer for him into the world was that he be somebody who builds rather than somebody who tears down, like a stone stacker, a mason. And we named him Bishop for two reasons. It's my mom's maiden name, but it's also true that I wanted to name him after Desmond Tutu. And I
Lovely.
didn't really want to name him Desmond or Tutu, so I thought, Bishop would be a nice kind of reference. So.
And let me have you introduce, I guess. You're going to play one song for us, and that song is what?
I think the song that's just popping into my heart right now is a song called "Home to Love." Maybe that's what I called it. I kept trying to decide what I was going to call this one on the album. Yeah, I think I changed. I said it. I finally settled on "Home to Love." I originally called it "What Matters," but I wrote this song when I was down in Australia, actually, on the fellowship. And when I wrote it in tune. Gonna try to recreate that for you. Just like the original. There we go. So I race out in the morning and I'm headed for the sky, to the wedding of a friend, and I'm running late again, but I make it through security and the multitude of lights and the boredom of the flight, and nothing feels quite right, but I find familiar faces when I come back to the ground. They are welcoming and warm at the center of the storm. We have come to celebrate the love that two of us have found. To hold this moment tight, hold this moment to the light, because this is what matters. This is what's real. To be open to the beauty, to be strong enough to feel. Doesn't all we call important only matter in the end, if it leads us home to love, 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 home to love. There are circles upon circles, there are ripples to these lines. It's not only these two, it's to be among you. All the lessons I have learned, I have forgotten them in time. But you've reminded me again of who I really am. And when the blood is flowing back after my arm is falling numb, there's a measure there of pain, but it's come alive again. And it seems that's what has happened to the man I have become. Like the springtime to a tree, you have reawakened me. And this is what matters. This is what's real. To be open to the beauty, to be strong enough to feel. Doesn't all we call important only matter in the end, if it leads us home to love, 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 home to love, home to what matters, what's real, home to love.
All right.
Question, David, will you be singing that at the concert?
I don't know.
So-
That's the answer.
Okay, it's cool. So
Yeah.
people are being for surprise when they come to the concert.
Right. I am pretty consistent about making set lists last. I like to get a sense of the night, where the world is, and the day that I'm playing. And generally, I've done probably 3,000 shows in the world at this point, and I would say maybe at 20 of them did I play the set list that I wrote down. I switch, even in the moment, I will change it on stage after the show starts. Sometimes before the show starts. Sometimes I walk out and I look at the set list and I think, nope, that's not it. And I play a different song.
And back to the concert, Steve, I'll turn to you again. So this upcoming Rotary event is going to be on what date again?
The date is June 9th. It's a Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And tickets can be obtained by how?
Yeah, we have two levels of tickets. I won't mention the prices. You can find those online, but you can get tickets at rotaryasheville.org. That will lead you to the Diana Wortham site, or you can go to the Diana Wortham site, which is dwtheatre, theatre.com.
I like to say DW Theatre.
Theatre.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
right.
That's
Theatre.
good.
That's a good way to remember.
Well, I
it.
always contend that's the, I don't know, is it the right way, but there's
Oh,
this
It's
big
the
debate.
British way.
the
I
British
think,
way,
yeah.
But it's become the American way, too. You know, most
If
theaters...
we want to
Yeah.
be highfalutin and European, that's the thing.
Is
yeah.
That's right. That's right. I think Asheville Community Theater does the same,
Right.
don't they?
Almost all the
Yeah.
theaters now call themselves theater, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we should also mention, Steve, thanks to Asheville Rotary, is that if anybody's watching us on Facebook Live, if they're watching us and they type in the word tickets, I think we said,
Yeah.
and if they're the fifth person who types it in, if nobody has done that yet, they're going to win two free
Two good, very good tickets
to
to the
this
concert.
event. I think you were also telling me off the air, I don't know if you finalized the details, that it's going to be kind of event. There's also going to be an online auction part of this?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, we were going to do the auction simultaneous with the concert, and we decided that was too much. So now the auction is going to take place. It's an online auction, so you can go to the website. Sterling Transitions is the name of the company one of our fellow Rotarians who's setting this up. And you can actually go to the website and look and see what's there and bid on it right there live. And it's going to be the 23rd through the 30th, more or less, of June, but that will be published pretty soon.
And what's really cool about that, too, and that'll be available at the Asheville Rotary
Well-
website?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
AshevilleRotary.org.
But what-
Sorry, RotaryAsheville.org.
Okay,
Gotta
one
get
of,
that right.
one of the things I like about that, too, is that, you know, many times you have the silent auction, and if you can't attend the event that particular day, you're out of it, you can't participate.
Yeah, this one goes on for a week, and it goes online. You can, wherever you are in the world, you can bid if you'd like to bid.
And
We have some really neat things already, but we're asking the public, we're asking all of our members, if they have something laying around that's really nice at home, but they never use it, let us know. And there are two ways to do that. You can go to the same site, rotaryasheville.org, to get information. But we also have an email address called givetorotary@gmail.com. And you can send a photo or a description of the item, and I'll be getting that, and I'll send it on to the auction people.
I'll just have you repeat that email address.
Yes, it's givetorotary@gmail.com.
Is that T-O or
R-O,
give to?
oh,
T-
give to, yeah,
T-O.
one word, givetorotary
Okay.
at
And
gmail.com.
is that the British spelling, or is that which way?
That's the universal spelling.
But nice thing too about any funds you raise will go back into supporting Rotary's efforts.
So
yes.
that is the most exciting part of the
Absolutely.
show, I think. Although I'm also thrilled to announce soon the people who are joining me on stage. But the
Yes.
best part of this is where the money's going.
Absolutely.
And let me ask Steve a little bit about that too. So we're talking about Rotary and just a phenomenal organization, but that one of the things you do, you support so many things in the Asheville area and worldwide, and that any monies you raise from this concert or the online auction going to support some of those endeavors, I guess. What are some of the
Absolutely.
things that they'll be supporting?
Well, we have too many to list all of them, to be honest with you. Some of them we just give a small amount to because that's all they need. But, for example, there's a project we run, Rotary Asheville runs, and that's the Honduras Medical and Dental Brigade. Every year we send a team over for 10 days to an area in Honduras that's very depressed. They hardly have any money to do anything, and they have no medical care. And we send a team over. Some of them are Rotarians, and some of them are other volunteers, dentists and opticians, optometrists. And they go over and they take care of so many people. I can't remember the exact number, but it's a couple hundred at least, maybe more. They take care of them for free. They give them dental checkups. They work on their teeth to the best they can. And we collect eyeglasses and send them over as well. And we give them eyeglasses. We have do eye exams. That's just one of many, and that's quite an expensive project for us.
Is that the one, my friend Mark Nolman, is that the one he?
Absolutely.
That's the one.
Absolutely.
And just I'm amazed that not only Mark takes time away from his practice, but all these other people, and that's just a
Well,
fantastic.
That's the kind of
program.
guy Dr. Mark Nolman is, and that's
Yeah.
the kind of guy so many of, almost, I would say, virtually all Rotarians think that way. Giving is part of their lives and making the world a better place. And it sounds like a big, speech, but it's actually true.
It almost sounds like the song for David,
It
or
does.
I think Michael Jackson, or you to that one.
Man in the Mirror, yeah, he did that one pretty well.
But it sounds like a David LaMotte song. Some of the other things
Yeah,
you're
so
supporting.
PEG, I'll let David tell you more about that. That's, I'll let him pronounce it too. I can pronounce it. I did it once.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's, yeah.
All right, you want to give it a
I'll
shot?
let you do it. You'll do it better.
Now you got me interested.
So I founded a nonprofit with my wife in Guatemala in 2004 that supports schools and libraries there and projects around literacy, creative arts, and critical thought. And so we've worked in a lot of different communities down there, but there's a particular village of Sanchaj near Santiago Atitlan that is, we're needing to build a new school there. For a school we've worked with for 12 years, they had to move the school. 14 years. They have to move the school, so we're building a new school in a partnership with Rotary. We've made an application for a large grant from Rotary International, and Rotary Asheville is putting $10,000 from this concert toward that school, which is just thrilling and makes a massive difference. That is so much money in Guatemala. Up here, you can't build a lot of school for $10,000, but in Guatemala, you sure can. That gets us a lot of the way toward that project. So that's really exciting for us. And PEG, the nonprofit, is called PEG Partners. PEG stands for Proyecto para las Escuelas Guatemaltecas, and that's why we call it.
I knew he'd do it better than I would.
And that's why we call it PEG.
I do it with an Italian accent. You see.
Perfect.
Okay, and just a few others.
Yeah, just a couple of others. We have something called tenant scholarships. It was named after a prominent Rotarian tenant. And this is Asheville high school students who really don't have the means to go to university. We have a scholarship fund that we fund several students from the Asheville High School to go to university. Blue Ridge Honor Flight is an incredible endeavor where we work in conjunction with other entities around this area. But we send, twice a year, we send a jet, an American Airlines jet normally it is, to Washington, D.C., and it's full of veterans and their escorts called Guardians. And they go early in the morning, they come back in the evening to an amazing reception at the Asheville airport, and they get an amazing reception in Washington, and they get to go and tour all of the monuments around Washington for the different services and the different wars. And it is just an amazing experience for both the Guardians and the veterans. And we're up to now where we're actually letting Vietnam veterans go because the numbers are dwindling for World War II, for example. And Korea, Korean War veterans as well are entitled to go.
One of the great things about that program, and it's very exciting to have it, even hear you talk about it, is that so often veterans are forgotten or, not recognized for what they've done for the country. And,
Exactly.
You guys do that, which is great.
Well, I'll just give you a very quick example of that. One of my neighbors, he's an artist, Leo,
Yeah.
Yes, Leo Monahan. He's an amazing artist. I invited him to go. He's a Korean War veteran. I invited him to go. And he said, oh, that sounds like an interesting thing to do. He went, and he just could not believe the feelings that it gave him inside. He said, I went to that war. I came back. I started life. Nobody said a word to me about it. I never said a word about it. He said, all of a sudden, all these years later, I feel like it mattered that I went over there. So, it's just a very touching thing.
He wrote a beautiful blog about that on his website that
Yeah.
I read. Leo
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah. Could I just,
Sure.
I think a good idea would be to run through some of these real quickly without talking a lot about them, just so you know, because they're self-explanatory. Rotarians Against Hunger, packing up to 300,000 meals a year to be distributed in the region for people who can't afford to eat a normal meal. Folk Moot, we all know about
Yeah.
Folk Moot. We also support Folk Moot. We're very close partners with them. We have a project we're going to be deciding on tomorrow. It's a surprise. We're doing what we call a Shark Tank tomorrow at Rotary to help decide which project we're going to support. We have something called, what's it called? It's called CART, but it's Coins for Alzheimer's Research Trust. So there's a blue bucket on the table in all the Rotary meetings at each table, and you can throw your coins or whatever you want every week into it, and it's amazing how much that accumulates to help Alzheimer's research. Polio Plus is something Rotary International has been working on for years, and we're down to just a few cases in the whole world. We haven't done it by ourselves, but we've made a major contribution to eliminating polio in the whole world. We do a couple of other things like Veterans Thanksgiving breakfast every year. There's a Salvation Army kettle campaign. The head of the Salvation Army is also a Rotarian here in the Asheville area. So we have a total of about $68,000 that we have in our budget for 2018-19, which ends on the 30th of June.
And Steve, the question is, if any listeners are hearing about all the good work Rotary does and wants to get involved, for example, I know just in the Asheville area there are, 3 or 4 chapters?
Oh, 7. I think
7.
it's 7 or 8. Yeah.
Best bet to get involved, specifically if they want to find out about your chapter or Rotary in general, is do what?
We are called the Rotary Club of Asheville. We have about 150 members at the moment, all kinds of people, but all people with a desire to help other people. That's one thing that's common amongst us all. We are accepting new members. If somebody's interested, they can go to the rotaryasheville.org website and look around, and it's pretty easy to find a page that says membership. Or you can just come Thursday at 12 o'clock, ask for Steve Anderson, or if I'm not there, I usually am, but be a guest. Be a guest of Rotary and just see what it's like to be in that room on a Thursday.
And you will be impressed,
Yeah.
that they have great speakers, they have great networking, really a
Exactly.
fine organization. Let me go back to you, David. We're talking about this upcoming concert, and what I'm really excited about, you told me off the air, it's not just they get to see you, but they get to see, I love how you're calling it, David LaMotte and friends.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the friends?
Well, as you know, this is just an amazingly abundant area to live in musically. The quality of music in Asheville, and the quality of music rooms, the quality of venues, as well as the quality of artistry here is kind of overwhelming. We are really fortunate to live here if you love music. And so I rang up a few friends of mine to see if they'd come play a song that night, and we've got quite a lineup. And a diverse lineup. We've got Drayton and the Dreamboats, who play this kind of 40s, 50s swing. They're really broadly diverse in what they can play. They also do, Latin flavored things. They've got a really interesting sound. Really talented young musicians that I wanted to be a part of this. We've also got some internationally known big names. We've got David Holt coming to play, who's
One of the three Davids, right?
one of the three
Yes,
Davids,
exactly.
and also a four-time Grammy recipient and Order of the Longleaf Pine recipient here in North Carolina. He's a national treasure, and we get to call him ours right here in Asheville. And so it's thrilling that David's going to come play a song for us. Always a brilliant entertainer. We got Cat Williams coming to sing, one of my favorite singers in this area. An incredible soul, gospel, blues voice that she brings, and just a bright, shiny spirit. And Kat has come through some health challenges in recent years, and it's just really neat that she's up for performing again. So I'm just thrilled that she's coming out to be a part of this. B.J. Liederman is coming to play in a return to the stage after taking a hiatus for a while. I called BJ up and asked him if I could twist his arm to come play a song, and he at first said, "Well, yeah, I'll come play one, but you can't advertise it. It'll just be a guest appearance." I was like, "Okay, great, I'd love to have you there." And then later he said, "Okay, you can advertise it." So it's really thrilling to have BJ coming along. And if anybody is scratching their head saying, "Wow, I totally know that name, but where do I know that name from?" Just listen to it in an NPR voice, and then you'll know. It's basically our theme music was composed by B.J. Liederman, right? And then you know, B.J. wrote the flagship theme songs for about 4 of the flagship shows on NPR. And he's just he put out his own album recently. That's a whole lot of fun. So that's exciting. And then Kalimba Man, Kevin Spears, has come in with his kalimbas. He's a brilliantly creative and entertaining musician who plays the African kalimba, also known as a thumb piano or an mbira. And he plays it with a loop pedal, and he stacks on tracks live, and then he sings over those, and he's just plays percussion on the instrument. He's just an incredibly engaging, fascinating performer. And when I was thinking about putting this together and the different kinds of flavors, putting together a show like this is kind of like cooking a good meal. And you want to get the right spices and the right ingredients and put them together in a way that's going to be as pleasing as it can be and nutritious. So I think I did that with this show. I'm really thrilled about the lineup.
Listening to this reminds me of almost like the old Ed Sullivan show. It's like this variety show
Yeah.
that they're going to be in for quite a treat. Not a problem, it's a nice kind of problem to have. How long is the show going to run?
Yeah, that's the thing. We will run it a reasonable length and no longer.
Well, one of the things I like about it, and I've loved it when I've seen you perform at White Horse Black Mountain, but the problem sometimes there, the shows go late, so the great advantage of this program starts at 4,
Starts
so-
at 4. You can make
so-
dinner plans for after the show. Yeah.
a late dinner.
That's right.
No, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be, until everybody gets to do their thing, you may be there for a while.
I don't think it'll run more than 2 hours.
Okay, great.
In all total. We'll do 2 sets, and I think the entire show will run about 2 hours.
Fantastic. Let me ask you too, going back to you as and your guitar, that I assume you'll be one of the performers.
I will,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
I'll play a few songs. I think most of my friends, I'm getting them just to play one, but I'm going to play several, so looking forward to that.
How about another song? Right
Sure,
now?
sure, yeah.
And what I love about this too is that you and I, Steve, are going to find out right now what song it is.
That's right.
It really hasn't been planned. We're just going to pick it up and play something.
I'm finding out too, right along
Okay.
with y'all.
May or may not be at the show at Dinah Wortham.
I got to play at 2 lovely festivals this year. in the last few weeks. I got to play over at Merlefest, which was a joy, and had Chris Rosser and James Kylan come back me up for that set. And then I got to play at the Leaf Festival this past weekend, which was also a joy. Incredible lineup out there, and it's just always such a good pile of people, you know, just the vibe in the air is so positive. People are so happy there, in spite of the fact that this year's Leaf was soggy in a big way. It was a very wet weekend, and so it was a bit of a mud pile. I thought it was kind of a cruel joke that I looked at the 10-day forecast after Leaf, and the entire first 5 or 6 days was just a big bright sunshine emblem, you know. So we're drying out a little bit, but I'll sing you a song about water. So they built their shiny hotel where the water meets the land. They smiled a little nervously as the ocean took the sand. They went down below the shoreline and they hauled back again. But the heavy rain and the hurricane and the water's gonna win, water's gonna win. Bring it all back, it will wash away again. The water's gonna win. Pack it up or pack it in. The water's gonna win. The glass of water you were sipping as you watch the morning come has quenched the thirst of 7 others underneath a younger sun. We are memories and moments. We are born and born again. We are rushing stream, breathing steam, and the water's gonna win. Water's gonna win. Ascending and falling and rising up again. The water's gonna win. Ride the tide and ride the wind. All the rocks and sign the papers. Pour another glass of gin. Cut the ribbon with the scissors. But the water's gonna win. Hey, 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 hey. You went down beside the river just about a year ago. Gave the ashes to the current. Watch them swirl into the flow. You still hold it all inside you. You can't stop once you begin. Close your eyes, feel it rising. Hey, the water's gonna win. Water's gonna win. Bring it all back, it will wash away again. The water's gonna win. Feel it flow beneath your skin. The water's gonna win. It will keep flowing through all we are and all we've been. The water's gonna win forever and amen. The water's gonna win.
Great.
Did you write that song?
I did, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that process, David, which always amazes me that you also write everything, you write most of the stuff you sing?
The vast majority, yeah. I've got a couple covers I do, but mostly original stuff, yeah.
How many songs have you written? Ballpark.
You know, I'm not a super prolific writer. I've probably written 150 songs, not thousands. You know,
Well,
I'm no Pete Seeger, but
Well, that's pretty prolific, 150 songs.
probably about that. Put out a bunch of records, and Yeah, I love the process of writing, and I hate the process of writing. It's really, really hard, and it's really vulnerable, and it's magic when it happens. It's really just an extraordinary thing to step into.
What leads you to write a song?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, writing is always about inspiration, but I think inspiration can be invited, right? So you don't have to just wait to be struck by lightning. You can sit down with the blank page, as all writers do if they're well disciplined, and sit there and make space for something to come. And it's very hard to pour something into a full cup, you know, as the old Zen koan teaches. So it's important to make space, and that's the greatest challenge for me in writing, is to make space. But I've been doing it for a long time now, you know, for decades, and so I've come to a place where I can write if I need to. It's not, I'm not as intimidated by the process as I used to be. So I've written some custom songs in recent years where I've been asked to write songs for particular events or occasions or people, and that's been an extraordinary invitation as well. But you just need to find something to hang it on, lyrically and musically. I tend to start with lyrics, and then I listen for the musicality in the words and what melody they might suggest, and then I put the chords with that. So I don't usually write from music. I have done that before, but generally I write from lyric toward music rather than music.
Have you ever written with somebody else also?
Yeah, I actually love co-writing with the right co-writer. I mean, you need really similar approaches to it, and sort of a level of professional respect that's really present in the room. But yeah, I co-wrote a song, actually one of my favorite songs on my most recent album. The album's called The Other Way Around. I co-wrote with my friend Wes Collins, whose writing I just adore, and he had said some kind things to me about my writing, so I thought we had a excuse me, a good starting place there to do some work together. And I invited him to come over from the Triangle area where he lives, and he's over in Chapel Hill. And I invited him to come over for a night and hang out and just have a writing date. And so we ended up writing a song that's really centered on the Rosa Parks story, called "You May Do That," which are the 4 words she said when she was threatened with arrest. When the bus driver said, "Ms. Parks, I'm gonna call the police and you're gonna go to jail if you don't give me that seat," he probably said it a little more rudely than that, but her precise words in response were, "You may do that." Those are 4 one-syllable words, and they encapsulate years of training in nonviolence that she had done, right? I think those 4 simple words said to him in that moment, look, I'm making a decision. I have options here, and I'm making this decision. My decision has consequences. Now, you get to make a decision. Your decision is not predetermined. You have options, and your decision has consequences. And now, you get to make your decision, but you don't get to make mine. And that's the heart of nonviolence, right? To have a clear boundary and say, this part I'm responsible for. That part you're responsible for. I am rising to my highest self, and I'm calling you to your highest self. So that song, I'd like to think it's a fairly artful and subtle song. She's not mentioned until the 3rd verse of that song, and then only subtly. But that was the inspiration for the song.
Now talk about that particular song. So the title to that is "You May Do That."
Yeah.
That was an easy one. The one you just played, was that "Water"?
That one's called "Water."
I always wondered, though, where does the title come into play, and when do you choose the title for a song?
Yeah, I choose the title last. I don't think about the title at all until later, in most cases, unless every once in a while you think, oh, that's a good idea for a song, and that's clearly the title of the song. But generally that happens last. And I've sometimes in my career titled songs a little esoterically, with some reference that's buried in the lyric somewhere or isn't in the lyric at all. But I've found that really, these songs aren't for me, they're for other people. So they need to be able to name them. And if they want to request it at a show, they got to be able to think of what it's called, right? So I want to make it somewhat accessible to people, what the title of the song is.
Some songwriters have actually told me that's one of the hardest things they have to do. They
picking
come
the
up with a
title.
song and then they
Yeah.
get stuck on the title.
I don't think that's true for me. The writing of the song itself is pretty hard. So I think that probably weighs out as harder than titles for me. But it is a challenge. And there are that's also a challenge with books and with that kind of writing.
At a show, how do you feel about, like, do you like people asking you for a particular song?
Oh, I love it because even if I can't play the song, even if I've forgotten how, or if it's in some weird tuning, or there's some reason I can't do it. It's just good to know that people resonate with a particular song. Your highest hope as a writer is that your story will be woven in with somebody else's, and when people let you know that that's happened, it's such a gift.
How about an etiquette question I'll ask you in terms
Yeah.
of people singing along with your music?
Oh, it's
Do-
awesome.
You enjoy it?
Yeah, sure, it's great. But I'm not but I should confess that I'm not that kind of writer. My songs tend to be phrased in a funky way, or in a sort of spoken way. They're not laid out in an easily followed meter. I don't have Pete Seeger's gift in that way. I also am a bass in my register, which if you just plot out my lowest and highest note, I'm a classic bass, so I'm not necessarily easy to sing along with for a lot of people. Although I don't think it sounds that way necessarily when people hear me sing. But yeah, so I don't. That's a particular gift, to write the kinds of songs. I'm actually a terrible song leader. I'm invited at conferences sometimes to be a song leader, and I'm really bad at it. And people sometimes think I'm being self-deprecating there. I'm not. It's a particular gift. My bandmate in my band, Abraham Jam, Billy Jonas, is a masterful song leader. He's so good at getting people involved, and that's a particular skill set, and it's really not mine.
One of the things I was very pleased you could join us this morning, because after you do the show, you're doing some more recording, and talk a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm going to be 15 minutes late to the studio this morning because I'm here, and I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity. But heading over to the studio, working on an album with Abraham Jam, which is my trio project these days. And our trio, we equally own it. But my friend Dawood Warnsby is sitting in the lobby right now. He's down from Canada, and he's based there outside of Ontario, or out in Ontario, in Kitchener, outside of Toronto. And Billy Jonas is the third member of the band here locally. And the three of us adhere in some regard to the three Abrahamic faiths. So we've got a Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim in the band together, which is sort of speaking a better story into the world right now than the one we're seeing on the news about interfaith relations. And I think it's really important when we think about how to do good work in the world, like Rotary does, to think about the fact that it's about what we stand in the way of, and also about what we build.
And if folks want to find out more about David LaMotte or some of the projects you're doing, best bet is to do what?
DavidLamotte.com or AbrahamJam.com.
And we should spell it.
LaMotte. There's no N in there.
Okay.
With a nod of the hat to Fred Sanford.
And there's also the double T.
Right.
DavidLaMotte.com.
Double T and an E on the end.
And lastly, for the Rotary information for the show coming up,
It's on June 9th at 4 o'clock at the Diana Wortham Theater.
and the information is
At rotaryasheville.org or DW Theatre.
I love that.
THEATRE.com. And I did want to mention something I forgot, like couple of seconds. We meet at the Rotary Club of Asheville meets at the Renaissance Hotel. I didn't mention that before. Every Thursday, 12 o'clock.
great. And I'd like to thank Steve Anderson and David LaMotte, my guests this week on the Blaine's World Show. I'd also like to thank Amy Prisnash, my producer, and to Zuzu Welsh, who provided the music. You heard at the beginning of the show. Now he'll bring
Hey,
it
Zuzu.
at the end. Yeah, it's a good guy. I also look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on the new WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina. And you can also listen on WPVM FM and watch on WPVM FM's Facebook page. Hope to
Thanks,
see you
Blaine.
next week.
Thank you.
listening to WPVM LP 103.7.
Military leaders in Sudan say